Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Not Just the Locked On Padres podcast. That's right, guys. We got another crossover for you on this lovely Monday, May 23rd morning, afternoon, whenever you're listening. I am being joined by one of the hosts of Locked On Brewers, because the Padres are going to be playing the Brewers after all. See what we did there? Mr. Domonic Cotroneo. I messed it up already. Cotroneo.
You're not the only one, man. Don't worry, dude.
Dude, it's insane. I will literally ask my guest before we record how I say the name, and I mess it up more. I do this all the time. It's so weird. But anyway,
hooked on
sir,
phonics, baby.
Cotroneo.
It's not too bad. I promise.
My apologies for that. Joking. But sir, how you doing?
It's all good. It's good. Good to be here, man. Thanks for having me on. I do wish I was in San Diego with the team right now, given it was 58 degrees yesterday for Brewers opening the roof, though. It was 61 at first pitch. Wasn't bad, but I would love some San Diego weather right about now.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on the matter. I am totally cool with being in the cold and whatnot. It has actually been really hot out in the old New Jersey lands where I'm in lately, but I'm just not. I'm cool. I don't mind the cold weather. It's great, even though that's not what a Padres host should probably be saying. But I guess we are heading into the summer after all. We're very deep into the season. Not very deep. Say we're deeper into the season now. Up in June and what have you. And both of our teams talk about it heading into this showdown. At the time that we're recording this, the Padres are currently beating the San Francisco Giants 10-1. So yes, I cheated a little. I just cheated a little bit. Mckenzie Gore looks great. I gotta ask you some stuff about the Brewers, because that's why I wanted to reach out, because I've been kind of a little bit mean about the Brewers, admittedly.
A little?
And the reason I've been mean, I've been in the World Series for a long time, right? And they just come off of this season where they were objectively great. They had a three-headed behemoth. Why is it that team doesn't then go out and spend a little bit of money in free agency when they are 20th in payroll and all of baseball, and they were just so good before? This isn't a rebuilding team. They're quite good. And on top of that, Freddie Peralta and Corbin Burns and who's the last one? And Brandon Woodruff aren't, free agents next year or anything like that. So can you expose me to the listeners? Should I be easing up on the Brewers hate? Why is it that they didn't necessarily make some investments in some areas, especially like the offense?
If you ain't broke, don't fix it. That's it's the old adage. Yes, the offense was slow, and I'll get on that in a moment. I think you share that same sentiment with a lot of Brewer fans locally here in Milwaukee, saying, why didn't principal owner Mark Atanasio spend more money when he knew the offense was the Achilles heel of this team? But let me explain that what Mark Atanasio did, first and foremost, people want to rip on the Brewers for not spending money. They still have their largest opening day payroll ever. Okay, it's not like they're going to suddenly spend $200 million overnight. That's not how they roll. Number two, David Stearns, the president of baseball operations, is known for pulling all the right strings when it comes to trades and pitcher development. Offense is always the most expensive thing in free agency. And were the Brewers linked to Kyle Schwarber? Yes, but where is he going to play? He can't play first base. DH was going to be an interesting proposition for him to have a solely left-handed DH. It may not have been a fit for him, and given the fact that the DH is obviously universal, which increased his price because now every single team is going to want him. The reason why I say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, but the way the Brewers did it is that they reworked things. Last year, the worst hitter on the team and arguably the worst hitter in baseball was Jackie Bradley Jr. And David Stearns flipped Jackie Bradley Jr. for Hunter Renfro. And I think we're going to look back in 5 years and look at this list. Granted, they had to send a couple of prospects over to the Red Sox to make this deal work. But you're going to look at this trade and be like, how the heck did David Stearns flip the worst qualified hitter in baseball for A, one of the best arms in baseball, B, one of the best power hitting corner outfielders in baseball, and C, a guy who doesn't have to worry about a green monster in left field anymore and can hit it to wherever he wants to now. Someone that you guys are familiar with, and Hunter Renfro and the Padres. So
yes,
I love that trade because you get rid of JBJ's bat, you don't lose anything defensively, and you add power. Secondly, they add Andrew Mccutchen, a great candidate for a bounce back year and a guy that is becoming the everyday DH, primarily because of his damage against lefties. He's still got a career over 1,000 OPS against left-handed pitching, which has always been one of the Achilles for the Brewers last 2 seasons, especially this year too. So that fact that he is now at the top of the order against lefties, giving some legit pop to the team, that's helping things out. And finally, having Rowdy Tellez every day at first base is an instant upgrade from the platoon last year of originally Travis Shaw and Keston Hiura. Listen to that for a second at first base. Travis Shaw and Keston Hiura at first base. That is already an upgrade of having Rowdy Tellez every day at first base. And Keston has had a really good week. He's back from AAA. Still a lot of swing and miss, but I want to see him get more consistent playing time, which is why I want to see him in AAA, and then he comes up as needed. This off the bench, in and out, isn't really working for Keston. But to your point, I understand why folks are mad that the Brewers didn't spend a lot of money this offseason, but they also owed all these guys in arbitration. Hader, Burns, Woodruff, they were all eligible for arbitration this year. So they all got raises, even though it wasn't an extension.
Gotcha. That is a fair counter. 100%. And I think that, just to use a little bit of a crosstown, as I am on the East Coast, I hear the people talking all the time. The Yankees were also similarly, now granted, they still spend a lot of money, but they similarly, a lot of Yankees fans are just used to the splashes. And instead, they just did little upgrades, which it sounds like what you're kind of explaining to me. They won 95 games last year. That's a very, very key point to remember. Won the division. They were very good. If not for an upsurge at the end of the year by the Cardinals, it would be a landslide, right, for them for the division. And they basically just made minor upgrades. The Yankees, they said, get rid of Gary Sanchez and his defense. And with Gio Urshela, we went to Donaldson, who's probably not a player to be talking about right now. But nonetheless, just in terms of minor upgrades, they kind of improved there. So I do get that. But I am also, I guess let's just move on to some other stuff, though, with the offense, though, in general. And shout out to Hunter Renfro, who I've always said, if you literally just look up, if you were someone who didn't know anything about baseball and you watch some of Hunter Renfro's hits, you'd be like, that's the best player in the game, right? Like he has some absolute mammoth hits and, like you said, very effective power hitter. I think low key for Boston for a brief stint, and can sometimes play a little bit of good defense. So I didn't mind that one as much. And Andrew Mccutchen at the minimum is just very likable. But I'm wondering in general, though, still with the offense, Christian Yelich, I know if you pull up his Savant page, everything's red, aside from outfielder jump, I think. Mm-hmm. Do you think that Yelich has been quietly kind of coming back into that semi or even just MVP mode? And if he is that enough for the Brewers offense to be carried for the rest of the year, do you think?
He's not quite in MVP mode again. He is past league average mode right now, which when you're paying a guy over $20 million a year, you want him to be way better than league average, obviously. But with Yelich, right now, he's in a weird funk of hitting 1 million ground balls, which kind of skews his hard hit data because ground balls will always hit harder than fly balls. Gotcha. So the fact is, Yelich is still infinitely better than he was last year. And first and foremost, he's healthy. He was dealing with a back issue. It seemed to be a lot bigger of an issue than he let on last season. And now he's actually hitting the ball hard. He's having good at-bats. Right now, he's in a ground ball funk, but obviously he had the cycle against the Reds a couple of weeks ago. But since then, he's kind of really cooled off since that cycle against Cincinnati. Would like to see him elevate the ball a little bit more. But, you know, truth be told, a lot of folks were very worried about Christian Yelich coming into the season, myself included. He is the cog. He is the stir, whatever cliche you want to use that makes the Brewers go. Him batting third behind a normally healthy Willy Adames, who the Padres will be missing this week, because Adames is on the injured list with a sprained ankle. So with Yelich as your focal point in the 3 spot, but this lineup gets a lot deeper, assuming Adames is in the order. Listen, I mean, 1 through 6, this is a darn good National League lineup. They'll have Colton 1 leading off, Willy Adames batting second, Christian Yelich in the 3 spot with protection behind him because he's either got Hunter Renfro or Rowdy Tellez batting in the cleanup spot. Then you interchange those 2 guys. Andrew McCutchen could be batting 5th or 6th. And then you still got Luis Urias available too. So Luis Urias, another Padre, another trade acquisition for David Stearns. And it just keeps on working for this lineup. I want to see them at full strength. But this is the biggest week because the Brewers, they've only played 5 games against teams above 500 this season. That's the fewest in baseball. This is the biggest week of the season, a quarter of the way in so far for the Brew Crew.
Absolutely. And, you know, that's a great point. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the trades and whatnot, because I do think the Brewers, while I do have criticisms about their spending, you're right about the trades. And we're going to be talking about the Padres trade that they made that has been killing every fiber in my body, every single one, ripping it to shreds lately. And I've actually gotten some flack on Twitter for not liking the trade, which is crazy to me. But anyway, before we get into that, guys, let's talk really quickly about sports betting and whatnot. Maybe you want to place your bets on who's going to win these Padres games. I know Nerfy NRFI's bets are big pop and whatnot. BetOnline.net has you covered. It continues to be the number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. They've got you covered for everything, guys. Wagering information, live betting, playoffs. They got esports stuff and much more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet online, where the game starts. And also, just want to remind everybody, thank you for making not just Locked On Padres, but also your first listen every day, free and available on all platforms, including the old YouTube. I don't have a great fit. Domonic honestly has a better fit than me today. I like that shirt. It looks really colorful and whatnot. I don't know. What does it say? Just a Nike shirt? But even nonetheless, it still looks cool.
Spring is sprung. Thank you. I'm a big Nike
cool,
guy,
man.
big
Pretty
shoe
cool.
game kind of guy. Our stadium crew here at American Family Field keep me sharp with everything that they've got going on. Taylor and Hannah, they know who they are. With their Jordan game is unmatched, so I got to keep up with them.
Unmatched. I love that. But the last thing I want to talk about when it comes to the Brewers and what have you is, like I was just saying before the break, is these trades, right? And there's been some that have affected the Padres, right? One of them that I actually think, last year's trade deadline was pretty nuts in Major League Baseball. My take has actually been, though, that I thought that the actually most impactful trade was one that didn't happen at the deadline, is that was for Willy Adames, who the Padres won't be seeing, like you just mentioned this week. But Adames left Tropicana Field, and I mean, night and day. It was insane. He played for the Brewers like the Rays were like insulting an insult to him. That's how much of a change Willy Adames has been. But more specifically, we got to talk about the Trent Grisham trade, which has been, oh my gosh. So first of all, a lot of moving pieces to this trade. But I do want to ask for your perspective on the matter, because Grisham, for Brewers fans, obviously with that playoff error, very infamous. That's what he was known for primarily. Padres, they come in and say, we think this guy is a great on-base threat. We've been terrible at having on-base percentage for the last 5 years heading into 2020. So they pick him up. He wins a Gold Glove, 250, 350 batting average on base. He slugs 12 home runs or something like that, steals a bunch of bags. He's great. And basically since the second half of 2021, if you look at weighted on base, he's been the worst qualified outfielder among all players, next to Cody Bellinger. I assume after this weekend series, that did not change against the Giants. So Trent Grisham has been quite bad. Can you talk to us really quickly about just, Eric Lauer? How is the guy looking? He looks like a beast right now. And Luis Urias, who you mentioned, who also very quietly has been an effective bat for them.
I mean, look away, Padres fans, with what these guys' baseball references look like right now, because Eric Lauer, letting it zoom, the zoom ball, his fastball, he's shortened his arm action thanks to the geniuses in the Brewers pitching lab, Chris Hook, pitching coach of the Brewers. What they've done with Eric Lauer, I mean, since the middle of the summer last year, he has become one of the best pitchers in baseball. I mean, even last season in 24 games, only 118 innings, he still had a sub 3.5 ERA. It was 3.19 ERA last year as a left-handed pitcher, a 1.13 whip as well. Strikeouts, he was averaging about a strikeout per inning, which is the best rate that he's had in his career. And this year, it's gone through the roof. He's averaging a career best 11.7 strikeouts per 9 right now, 54 Ks in 41 2/3 innings. It's the fastball and the cutter combo. The vast majority of his fastballs have been strikeouts. He's using it as an out pitch, not just a strike one fastball, strike two cutter, curveball, swing and miss. No, he will use the fastball elevated to get you in swing and miss. He's a perceived velocity type guy where it gets on you in a hurry, looks a lot faster than it actually is, and the short and arm action has really helped him out. One of the best pitchers, not only in the National League, but in baseball, starting to get his due, a 2.16 ERA this season. He's been terrific, and he really burst onto the scene on Sunday Night Baseball against the Phillies about a month ago. Had 6 shutout or 1-run innings with 13 strikeouts, a career high for him. Nasty, out of nowhere, it seemed like. But for the Brewers, we knew this was coming. And for Urias, he missed the first month of the season due to a strained quad that he suffered during spring training. but he's come back and hit the ground running. It's like he hasn't even skipped a beat, and he's suddenly become one of the most important infielders for the Brewers in especially Adames' absence, because he's the only other true shortstop on this roster right now. And in 16 games, he's reached base in every single game. He's got a 293 batting average. I mean, he's doing his job. He had the day off yesterday. He has been everything the Brewers have wanted and more. And he's not the only example. Tyrone Taylor, who's a local kid, he's a Torrance kid going back to San Diego this week. And two guys that just need a little more time, just need a little more seasoning, understand what's being asked of them. And they're both absolutely key role players. They're not asked to be 3 and 4 hitters, but they're doing their role. Kudos to the Brewers player development, to staying patient with them and seeing potential with Urias, because 2020 was weird for everybody. It was really bad for Urias. 2021, he showed flashes. He hit 23 bombs last year as this short little second baseman. This is awesome. And he's picked up exactly where he left off. He's been great. And for Trent Grisham, I feel bad for him because I saw him a lot in the minors, and I was a big fan of the way he played the game, the bare hands, just a gamer, and plays great defense too. But you're paid to hit, not just to make plays, and he's got to figure that out sooner. And then, Zach Davies, that's a whole nother story for a whole nother time right now with what he's going through and the Instagrams and his ex-wife. That's a lot of heavy stuff I don't want to touch right now.
Yeah, I totally understand. And look, with the Padres, it is fair for me to be like, all right, I don't mind the Urias thing as much, in a sense that, we had a lot of infielders, and that's okay, right? That's okay if it was a 1-for-1 and that you say we desperately, desperately need outfielders. The problem is that Lauer, there is a nice shiny universe where, and here's the other thing, 26 years old, if I'm not mistaken, correct me on that.
Yes, that's correct.
This isn't some guy who at the age of 34 might be figuring it out, or might be just be having one of those, lightning in the bottle seasons. It's like, what if this is just who he is? And that's been my, what he's developing into, I should say. He's a guy that, yes, he can give up some hard contact, but a lot of guys who strike out people the way Lauer does, for sure. And you look at Darvish, and my thing is, Darvish is great, but I'd like to have those assets back, including Eric Lauer, maybe for not as much money. Like a loss for the Padres right now. But Domonic, and I must say, by the way, Domonic, I'm a big fan of the name in general. Domonics are one of my favorites as a fan of the Fast and Furious franchise. So always
like Coronas
and whatnot. Always, for sure, man. You got any questions about the Padres for me?
Dude, is Eric Hosmer for real or what? What is going on at first base right now there? Because he was linked to the Brewers at some point last season, that the Brewers going to take on all this money. You're going to get your first baseman. You're just going to grin and bear it if it doesn't work out. And now it's like the Padres look like geniuses for hanging on to him.
It is unbelievable. And you probably aren't familiar with this, but a bit on my podcast is because of how nightmarish the Padres first baseman has been for basically his whole tenure there. Half of a war, I'm pretty sure, before this season, over 3 years. Right. And his best time with the Padres was in 2020 when he played 38 games. He'd been a disaster. So as a result, I refused to say his name on the podcast, which I'm still keeping up. And at this point, I'm keeping it up because it looks like it's working. All right. It looks like the bullying tactic might be working on my part. It's a lot of different things. I think, for one, that this is a good example of why it's not just numbers. It's not just pulling up baseball savant pages all the time. And you say, maybe he heard the noise and maybe he said, I need to step up. And he really has. He's given a lot of productive at-bats. He still hits the ball on the ground quite a lot, but hitting a lot better against lefties and just kind of picking his spots well. He's not doing too much. And another thing about the Padres first baseman, he's always been an every other year guy. He has never had 2 consecutive good years in a row, never had 2 consecutive bad years. That's not true. He did with the Padres, but you get my point, especially with Kansas City. I think that what they need is for him to just not be a 0 WAR player. If this guy can give you 2, if he can give you 2.5, that's great, because if you have Fernando Tatis Jr. come back, if you have Manny Machado, who's looking like the National League MVP at this rate, you have their pitching and all that stuff, and you just have some overall good depth in that lineup, that's okay. They can stomach that. Otherwise, they're in situations where they want to trade him and Chris Paddock, Emilio Pagan, Ryan Weathers, and whatever the heck they can, and eat some of the salary to the New York Mets, which is one thing that was rumored before the season started. I think it's a lefty thing. I think that it's him, or I should say, hitting better against lefties. I think he's been more consistent, and just, there was a great video on Bally Sports that they did, just kind of covering that. He's got a little bit of a change in his batting stance, not too much wiggle room with the legs, especially with the front kick and whatnot. Hopefully I said all that right. But he's definitely made some adjustments, and that's nice to see. And I think that while he is going to definitely come down, very rare that this fly ball and ground ball rate discrepancy is going to keep up for an entire season, especially with the fact that he's not a very fast runner. But nonetheless, if he can just be an average or even slightly above average player, it's huge for the Padres.
And on top of him, obviously you mentioned Machado, but
Yeah.
the year that Machado's putting together is ridiculous. He's been
Your eyes
one of the
lit
most
up.
one of the most underrated players in baseball, and I know Brewers fans are cringing when I say that, given what happened when he was a Dodger in the 2018 NLCS. Look, the dude, you got to give the dude his blouses. 8 bombs, 358 going into yesterday. What's working for him? Like, why is it suddenly clicking this year? Is it, and especially in the year that you're not going to have Tatis Jr. until probably the All-Star break?
Mm-hmm. I would say that one of my things about Machado last year was great year. 4 F4, if I'm not mistaken, great defense, but he never got hot. You know what I'm saying? He never had that stretch where he's like, I'm the best third baseman in baseball. All right. Not just like, I'm really great and consistent. I appreciate that. But he headed into this year, and it seems like Machado is just, this is probably why he's the leading candidate for the MVP, because I do put a lot of weight into the fact that without Tatis out, which they needed this from Manny Machado, with what we talked about with Trent Grisham, with the fact that Jake Cronenworth hasn't been that effective, with the fact that there's so many questions about this Padres offense, with the first baseman, with guys like Will Myers, he needed to be awesome, and he came through in every single way. Just the other day, tied his career high, or actually passed it in Sunday's game for the most multi-hit, the most multi-hits in his career in a single game, if I said correctly. So that was great. Running balls. He's been playing great defense. Just flat out playing great baseball. I mean, he leads the league in F4. It's been awesome so far for Manny Machado, and he's kind of stepped up at the right time. He's always been capable of an MVP season, but it's never quite fully come together. One of the years in Baltimore, one of the best offensive players, they moved him to shortstop, and I guess he was just kind of like winging it. I don't know what happened that one year when he stopped playing really good defense. And then the year before, one of the most unlucky years with his ground ball rate and his BABIP and stuff like that, right? Now everything seems to be coming together, and the Padres absolutely need it. And I can't wait to see if he's able to keep it up, because at this rate, he's showing that he's not going anywhere anytime soon, and absolutely might have a case to be made for a Hall of Fame case at some point in the future.
It's shocking to me that he's only been top 3 in MVP in 1 year, and that was the shortened season in 2020. That's shocking to me.
Crazy,
I think back to his 2015 season when he really came out, but 35 bombs, 502 slugging for the whole season. He was only 4th in MVP. That's the highest he had previously been in a full season. How's Bob Melvin been, by the way? I mean, Bob Melvin and Craig Counsell are like best friends, by the way, mentor and mentee for what this series is going to be for these two guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Bob Melvin coming back from an operation recently, and he just rejoined the team for San Francisco. So that's really great. But before I answer the full question, let me just say, maybe something that's been helping the Padres this year, man, maybe Manny Machado, what's been happening is that they started taking some athletic greens.
Yeah, I gotta sell those promos, baby.
Yeah, there we go. Our next partner, guys, is a product I use very, very often. I started taking athletic greens, one, because honestly, just good start to my day, I think, is the way that I like to explain it. I'm not a super health nut or anything like that, but athletic greens is really helpful for you, and it helps you out in a lot of ways. Here are some health facts. It's lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy-free, gluten-free. It contains less than 1 gram of sugar, no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or artificial anything. Helps you sleep better. Lots of different vitamins. AG1, athletic greens, I should say, is a small micro habit with big benefits. It's one thing you can do every single day to take great care of yourself. It costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health, and it's cheaper than your cold brew habit, which is super helpful. I never got into the old cold brew coffee stuff, but that's really my thing, guys. Love starting off my day on the right foot. And to make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase, All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/MLB network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/MLB network to take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. How about that, man? And now let's keep it moving. Dominic, wait, you already asked me about Bob Melvin. There we go.
Bob Melvin. He's my guy.
Yeah. I mean, he's been great. And for the Padres, yes, it is true that sometimes people, maybe do they overestimate the impact of a manager? Some people would argue that. I think that it's good to have, after what happened for this Padres team in specific, which is what I can talk about. You had some reports in The Athletic that there was a large amount of locker room drama and whatnot, more than usual, if I'm not mistaken, is what the quote had, which granted, it was a big collapse. I would kind of expect that to be happening, but even still, I do believe that Jace Tingler, and according to a lot of other sources, that kind of lost the locker room, that you have the Tatis and Machado argument, which blows up. Then you bring a guy in like Melvin, which I've said many times, on top of the winning acumen. Yes, I know he's had some weird bullpen things and whatnot. On top of the winning acumen in Oakland and previous teams, overachieving teams. On top of that, it also showed that AJ Preller, Padres GM, was just paying attention and saying, you know what, maybe I need to bring out a guy who's just really, and maybe he's just not an extension of the front office, which is something that people have criticized his last hires for, like Andy Green, like Jace Tingler, who we knew from Texas, or was someone that he's been close to before. Instead, he reached out and said, Melvin, you got to come in because this team is super talented. You've got the most exciting, talented player, arguably of the generation here. Like, come on by, help us fix this. And so far, I've enjoyed it. I actually think that it is not, I don't like to say that the humble pie is the only way, that you have to just be strictly business. No, you can be, extravagant and have your fun out there and be, have a personality for sure. But I think after last year, with all the swag chains and stuff and how it ended, I actually think a really calming influence and just kind of being a guy that players respect, right? I think that really, and they seem more focused than ever, honestly. And watching the team last year, loved every second of it. But when it's not working, it's not so much fun. And you look a little bit silly when you're hanging swag chains, when your team is having the greatest collapse in franchise history. So yeah, Melvin has been super awesome. And another underrated one, Ruben Niebla, being brought over as the pitching coach. That was must, because we talked a lot about Eric Lauer. The Brewers probably knew this. An old saying, not an old saying, but they said, Padres pitching, you should probably make trades for those pitchers because they haven't been very good at developing them. So bringing in Niebla, another sign that the front office is at least noticing some of its issues that they've been having recently.
And for the Padres too, you are pitching in a pitcher's ballpark, which certainly should help them in theory. And their pitching staff is the only starting staff as a whole that's really got. It's you and the Yankees that are the only teams that are really competing with the Brewers starting staff as among the best staffs in baseball. And that is including the Mets. And that is including, what Chris Bassett's doing. Now they got Scherzer out for a couple of months. DeGrom hasn't picked up a baseball since spring training. So I'm counting the Mets out in that. It's between you guys, the Yankees, and the Brewers for the best staffs in baseball. And you don't even have Snell healthy right now, really. Now Clevenger's back on the IL. I mean, you guys are making it work. Next man up is Mckenzie Gore legit. It seems like Sean Manaea has really worked out for you guys as well. Take me through that pitcher's room right now.
Absolutely, man. And let's start with Gore first. I love to talk about Mckenzie Gore. Great outing for him against the Giants the other day. Yes, the one critique you could say is a lot of fastballs, relying heavily on the fastball, but it's playing. You want to look at run value? Go for it. You want to look at whiffs? Go for it. Whatever it is, Mckenzie Gore's fastball. And on top of that, I don't even almost care about, oh, well, he struck out 10 against the Reds. I kind of don't care about that stuff because it's Gore. He's a rookie. And given his really tumultuous kind of development, going from the literal number one pitching prospect in baseball not too long ago to just falling off a cliff out of nowhere. He's in the 60s range and everyone's saying, what's going on? He has no control. He is painting the inside corners with that fastball. He can have it rise a bit when he needs to. And he's still working on his sliders and curveballs and stuff. So he does have the off-speed stuff. But the fact that the fastball is playing so well already at his age, immediately against major league hitters, if those other pitches start coming along, we are looking at a bona fide kind of ace for the Padres staff. And he's been huge because of the health mentions, right? Blake Snell starting off the season on the IL. Mike Clevenger also on the IL. And then just landed on the IL again 2 days ago. So with Gore, that's really the biggest story when it comes to why the Padres have such a complete rotation. And then, of course, you got Joe Musgrove. Love that man. Leads the league, or at least tied for the league lead in quality starts, which I know isn't the be-all and end-all when it comes to stats and what have you.
Still a
but
good number, though.
yeah, it's still a great number, and I'd say that that's kind of the definition of the Padres right now. They might not have a Corbin Burns. They don't. I'm not even going to say they might not. They don't have a Corbin Burns who goes out there, 7 innings, 1 hit, 17 strikeouts, or whatever the heck he's done recently, right? They don't have that. They don't even have. I would actually argue they might not have maybe a top 15 pitcher. You could argue though Joe Musgrove is in there, but they have all the depth in the world with their rotation. And that's what's helping them win. It's very rare that you go out there and it's inning 4 and the Padres have already given up 5. That just doesn't seem to happen, aside from a bad Darvish start early on in the year. And aside from maybe Nick Martinez, who's like the 6 in this rotation. I don't care if Nick Martinez struggles sometimes, if he's the 6, right? And not to mention, he's looked really good out of the bullpen so far. Watch out for that changeup, Brewers homies over there. Very lethal pitch. It's one of the best changeups in baseball right now. So even he has his value. That's the thing, is they don't need, there are other teams who have a Mania or a Musgrove, and that's it, right? And then they're just hoping to kind of weasel by, pick up some dudes like the White Sox the other day, that they can pick up Johnny Cueto and give them a good start. With the Padres, it's about consistency, and they really need that because their offense isn't exactly one that's going to light up the world. You know what I'm saying?
And you're going to see some good stuff. Now, tonight, it's Adrian Hauser going for the Brewers, who most other teams would love to have their 2 or 3. The reality is he's the 5 for the Brewers this season. Ground ball specialist, Adrian Hauser. But then you get to see Corbin Burns tomorrow in game 2 of the series. And then our wonderkind, Aaron Ashby, getting the start on Wednesday in the finale against Yu Darvish. Wait till you see this slider changeup combo. He'll throw more sliders and fastballs, left-handed, lanky, and you blink, and it's just nasty. He's been on a roll right now. So I think this is going to be a huge series just for the Brewers to figure out who they are. We know what the NL West looks like, in that the competition that you guys get to play on a daily basis between what the Dodgers keep on doing, the Giants are for real again, and the Rockies and Diamondbacks have surprised some people with the quality of their teams. And
not too bad.
The problem that the Brewers face is that, look, they own the Pirates. The Pirates are better this year, don't get me wrong, but they just got stomped yesterday 18-4 to the Cardinals. The Cardinals can't pitch, but when they play the Pirates, it makes it look like they can pitch. The Cubs can't play well right now, and the Reds are rebuilding. So it's a 2-horse race in the Central. They don't get these high leverage, sweat it out type games that I think this series and the Cardinals, which is who are the Brewers facing after this week's series against Padres, it's going to be a huge, huge week to figure out if the Brewers are legitimately pennant contenders in the National League, because they're going to have to beat a team like the Padres or the Dodgers to get into the pennant.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the Pirates are down atrocious. Let me tell you, the Steven Matz for the Cardinals threw 3 pitches, their starting pitcher. What ends up happening? The Cardinals win 18-4.
Brutal.
It's just poor Pirates fans, man. But yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a huge test case. And the last time the Padres played the Brewers last year, it wasn't, the Padres kind of headed into town as the super favorite. And I watched the Brewers. It's kind of an annoying team with the pitching, right? Maybe people didn't exactly know. Yeah,
you take that back. Not annoying.
What's a better word, do you think? Just meticulous. I don't know what a word is for the Brewers. Well,
precise.
They're just a great team. Precise is a good word. That's a good word. And one of the things I remember writing an article about that some people from Brewers County disagreed with, which fair, I'm not a Brewers fan, that they had a little bit of like those Mets vibes when they had, Syndergaard in their prime, and they had DeGrom, and they had Matt Harvey, where it was like this 3-headed monster. Yeah, 2015 Mets. They had this 3-headed monster, and then they brought in Yoenis Cespedes to be their anchor. For you guys, it looks like that was Willy Adames for last year. Hopefully it's going to be Yelich for them, but you can win baseball games that way. And I think with the Brewers, I'm very curious to see. Colton Wong, I think, is incredibly underrated. Great glove, just solid. I just feel like you know what you're getting from that guy all the time. If Yelich is back even just a little bit, it's a really fun series, I think, especially for baseball nerds who want to see good pitching. Ashby, I've been hearing through the grapevine a little bit about this guy. I already know about Lauer. Is Lauer going to be available in this series? Is he scheduled to pitch for this one?
Lauer is scheduled to pitch in the opener against the Cardinals on Thursday. So
Okay.
you will be missing Eric Lauer. You will be seeing Urias. You will be seeing one of the best bullpens, if not the best bullpen in baseball.
Oh, yeah.
7, 8, 9, Brad Boxberger, Devin Williams, Josh Hader. Josh Hader is the best closer on the planet right now. It's gonna, if it's a 1-run lead, hold on to your butts, because the Brewers, if they hand it over to that 7, 8, 9, it's over. Wrap it up. It's over.
Yeah. And for the Padres, I will say, absolutely not the case when it comes to the bullpen. The bullpen has been easily the Achilles heel of the team so far, partially because of a lot of injuries. Pierce Johnson, Drew Pomeranz, Tim Hill just got back from the IL. Just a good amount of injuries that have happened so far. So, we'll have to see if maybe Nick Martinez comes out of the bullpen and maybe he can be effective there. But the only thing they have super going for them for sure has been Taylor Rogers. He's been one of the best closers. And just in terms of overall giving up runs, slightly better, maybe, I think, than Josh Hader, but Josh Hader's still better. I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to front, I'm not doing anything silly, but that's the only person really that you have to be super terrified of if you're the Brewers, unless for some reason they get Drew Pomeranz back tomorrow, which they're not, from what I've heard. So hopefully we get a good series, man. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
This should be a lot of fun. You're going to learn a lot about the National League pecking order after this week, and looking forward to it. Thanks for jumping on and having a little crossover fun with this.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Everybody go check out Locked On Brewers wherever you get your podcasts. Go check it out on YouTube. If you want to see Dominic's lovely shirt, you could check that out, of course. At Dom Cotroneo on Twitter. Everything is linked. You know how it rolls. Dominic, do you have any last final words, any last plugs you want to get out there for the good people?
Plug you, Javier. Thanks to all of our friends at Locked On Padres, of course. Javi Peño over on Twitter. 2 eyes and Javi. And really appreciate you hopping on here, chatting a little Padres. Brewers obviously don't get to stay up and watch you guys all that much. So I will be staying up, bringing all the recaps for everyone here in the Central Time Zone. And we'll have some fun this week, man.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Everybody stay safe. And of course, stay faithful as always. My Fire Faithful homies. Take care.